Welcome back to the Lost Save podcast, where we dig through the forgotten games of yesterday and bring those memories back to life. Today we're going back to 2005, a time when the Nintendo GameCube was still going strong. Four-player gaming was everything, and movie studios were turning basically every popular franchise into a video game. And today's game is one of those titles that you might have completely forgotten existed. Shrek SuperSlam. That's right, Shrek, Donkey, Puss in Boots, Princess Fiona, and they're all beating the absolute hell out of each other. So grab your GameCube controller, because we're going back to the swamp. Shrek SuperSlam was released in 2005 and developed by Shaba Games, with Activision publishing the game. It came out for multiple platforms including Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, PC, Nintendo DS, and Game Boy Advance. But today we're focusing on the GameCube version. The basic concept was simple. Take the Shrek universe and turn it into a 3D fighting game. This wasn't a traditional one-on-one fighter like Tekken. It wasn't trying to be Super Smash Bros. Instead, it was more like a chaotic arena brawler. You pick the Shrek character, enter arena, grab weapons, objects, smash their opponents, and try to build up your special attack meter. And then, you unleash the Super Slam. The entire game revolves around the concept of the slam. You're fighting, attacking, destroying things, and building up your meter. Once it's charged, boom, you unleash a special attack. And because this is Shrek we're talking about, these attacks can get absolutely ridiculous. Take Shrek himself. His special attack is essentially a massive gas attack. Because of course it is. This is exactly the kind of humor that made the original Shrek movies so popular. The game doesn't take itself seriously. You're not supposed to sit there analyzing frame data. You're supposed to laugh when Shrek destroys somebody with a fart. And the roster is actually pretty interesting. You got the obvious characters Shrek, Donkey, Fiona, Puss in Boots. But then things start getting weird. You got characters like the Gingerbread Man, the Big Bad Wolf, Prince Charming, Captain Hook, and other fairy tale characters. The roster takes the entire twisted fairy tale world from Shrek and basically says, everybody's fighting now. And that's one of the game's biggest charms.
Welcome to Friar Tuck, home of the bacon double fatty monster burger. Breathing your arteries won't clog. And what can we fry you today? Hey buddy, make a choice already. I'm starting to petrify back here. Whoa, slow down, Pally. I speak 5 languages, but I don't know gibberish. Want to take another whack at it? We're closed! Alright, I don't like the sound of whatever it is you're saying, Metal Mouth. So I'm just gonna order you a knuckle sandwich with a side order of butt whooping!
The thing that actually made SuperSlam stand out was its physics. The arenas weren't just flat backgrounds. You could interact with the environment. Furniture could be destroyed, objects could be picked up and thrown, structures could break apart. And the game used Havoc physics, which helped give everything a much more physical feel. So imagine 4 people playing. You got Shrek, Donkey, Puss, and Fiona, and everybody's throwing objects, buildings are getting destroyed, and somebody's charging their Super Slam. Someone else is trying to run away, and then suddenly Shrek farts attack. That's an experience. And this is where I think Shrek SuperSlam really shines, 4-player multiplayer. The GameCube was already one of the best consoles for local multiplayer. You had Mario Kart Double Dash, you had Super Smash Bros, you had Mario Party, and then you had a crazy Shrek fighting game for people could sit around the GameCube and just go at it. And that's important because SuperSlam isn't really about having some incredibly deep competitive fighting system. It's about having fun. You can hand somebody the controller and explain the game in about 30 seconds. Beat everybody up, fill your meter, and use your slam. That's it. There were several different ways to play. You had the traditional fighting game experience, you had multiplayer, and you had story content. And one particularly interesting feature was the challenge mode, which included around 50 different challenges. These challenges tested things like combat, movement, throwing objects, and interacting with the environment. So there was actually more here than just pick Shrek, punch Donkey, although let's be honest, that's probably what most of us were doing.
Donkey, get down from there! Past your bedtime! Oh, that's it!
Donkey, what's going on here?
Oh, hey, Shrek, I didn't hear you come in with all that smashing, bashing, and crashing. Would you stop that, please?
Donkey, Survivor Sherwood Forest is almost done. We need to get those little monsters to sleep quick. Have you tried reading them a bedtime story?
Shrek, you're such a rookie. You got a lot to learn about child rearing if you think these wild, fire-breathing animals want to listen to some tired old bedtime story.
Rookie, eh?
Yeah, well, beginner's luck.
All right, drunkies. Uncle Shrek is going to read you a fairy tale. Who wants to hear one?
Oh, great. Now what are we going to do?
One thing that made SuperSlam possible was the popularity of Shrek franchise. By 2005, Shrek wasn't just a movie series anymore. It was everywhere. Movies, toys, fast food promotions, television, merchandise, and of course video games. But here's what makes SuperSlam different. Instead of simply trying to recreate one of the movies, the developers created an entirely new scenario. They took the characters people already knew and built a completely new fighting experience around them. That's actually a smart way to take a licensed game. So how did the critics feel about it? Well, it wasn't considered a masterpiece, but it wasn't considered terrible either. The game generally landed in that middle to above average territory. The GameCube version scored around the 70 range on aggregated review sites. GameSpot gave the game a roughly a 6.9 out of 10, and the general critical opinion was pretty consistent. The multiplayer was fun, the humor worked, the fixes were entertaining, but the combat wasn't particularly deep, and eventually the gameplay could become repetitive. Basically, great party game, not exactly the next Street Fighter though.
Which one of these guys trashed your house?
All of them! You can battle your friends as 20 characters from Shrek in 4-player melee combat. Break through walls, find hidden weapons. It's Shrek like you've never seen him before. Shrek SuperSlam, rated everyone 10 and up.
Now here's where things get interesting. There isn't a reliable official worldwide sales number publicly reported by Activision for the Shrek SuperSlam game. Some sales databases estimate the GameCube version at roughly 220,000 copies worldwide, but those numbers are estimate rather than the official publisher figures. So we're not talking about a massive blockbuster. This wasn't Mario Kart, it wasn't Super Smash Bros, and it wasn't one of the biggest selling games of the GameCube. It was a relatively modest selling license game, and that's probably part of the reason it eventually became forgotten. Think about what was happening in gaming in 2005. We had Resident Evil 4, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess was coming, Call of Duty 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Super Mario Strikers, and an enormous number of other games. So when somebody saw Shrek SuperSlam, they probably thought, oh, another licensed game, and moved on. But that's exactly why games like this are fascinating today, because when you go back and play them years later, you realize, wait a minute, this is actually a pretty fun game. There's something special about the mid-2000s generation of licensed games. These games were everywhere. Some were terrible, some were average, and some were actually really good. But because they were based on movies, cartoons, and toys, they often weren't taken seriously. Shrek SuperSlam falls into that category. It's not remembered as one of the greatest GameCube games ever made, but as somebody who grew up with it, and you'll sometimes get a completely different answer, because nostalgia changes everything. You remember sitting on the floor, full controllers plugged into the GameCube, your friends yelling at each other, and someone picks Shrek, someone picks Donkey, and somebody gets knocked across the arena, and everybody starts laughing, and suddenly that's a memory. And that's why I think Shrek SuperSlam deserves another look, not because it's secretly the greatest fighting game ever made, but because it represents something that gaming has moved away from. Local multiplayer chaos. You didn't need an online subscription, you didn't need matchmaking, you didn't need a headset, you didn't need a battle pass, you didn't need downloadable content, you just needed a GameCube, 4 controllers, some friends, and Shrek SuperSlam, and that was enough. So where does Shrek SuperSlam rank? I gave it around an 8 out of 10. The graphics were pretty good, the combat was simple but fun, The characters were great. The physics surprisingly entertaining. The multiplayer, that's where the game gets an easy 9 out of 10. And the nostalgia is 10 out of 10. It's not a forgotten masterpiece, but it is a forgotten piece of GameCube history. And sometimes those games are worth talking about, because when you dig through the old libraries, you find games that never received the recognition they deserve, and Shrek SuperSlam is one of them. And that's another episode of the Lost Save podcast. Today we went back to 2005 and revisited Shrek SuperSlam, a game that took one of the biggest animated movie franchises in the world and turned it into a 4-player fighting game. Maybe it wasn't perfect, maybe it wasn't a blockbuster, but if you spent a Saturday afternoon with 4 people around a GameCube controller, you probably remember it. And that's what the Lost Save is all about. Remembering games, the consoles, the characters, and those memories we thought we'd forgotten. Until next time. And remember, don't forget to save your game.
Get ready.